Good evening, everyone. It's Amanda Hen, and welcome to Bedside Chats. I did want to bring some information about the coronavirus packages that were enacted by Congress to help people in need, especially the business loans, grants, etc., and also unemployment. As of today, the programs are just in disarray. The Eidl program that was supposed to help small businesses with the $10,000 grant and up to $25,000. It was a simple little loan application. It was supposed to give you $10,000 within 3 days, and then a $15,000 loan at very low or no interest. Well, that has just turned into a disaster. I don't know of a single person that's received any of those funds. I have seen online where some people have maybe received $1,000 because when the program started, it was going to be an automatic $10,000 grant and then a $15,000 loan. But of course, when SBA started looking at it, they changed the whole thing around, and they read the law as it was $1,000 per employee instead of just the $10,000 grant. And of course, Congress has written them letters telling them that that is not how the law was written, and they do need to go ahead and give the $10,000 grant as promised. But I did speak to SBA yesterday, and the people that's on the telephone that you speak to, they know absolutely nothing about it. There's still millions of applications that need to be processed. I think there's less than 50,000. It's less than that. It's like maybe 25 or 30,000 that have been processed, and the people have received some of the grant money, whether it's $1,000. It's according to how many employees you put down in the application. This particular loan was just fabulous for small businesses like hairdressers and beauty shops, film production companies, florists, anything that's small that didn't, that really wouldn't need a huge amount of money just to keep afloat until we can reopen. And most states are slowly reopening, whether it's smart or not, I don't know. I'm not going to argue with that point. I know I'm going to stay in until I know for sure that it's okay, and I'll have my mask on. I don't care if it looks weak or not. But if you see my little happy, out running around, I will have a mask on. And it may not do one blasted thing, but I'll still do it. And I carry a container of Clorox wipes, and I wipe everything that's known to man. But, I just don't get out of the house very much. I try to make, it doesn't take much to make me happy. And I enjoy reading and really understanding what's going on. I try to ascertain what in the community that I might could do to help. And I started these video chats and bringing words of inspirations. I have interviewed different people just to not only help the community, but also keep my creative juices flowing too, because I want to be able to pick up where we left off as soon as this virus is over with. I'm as anxious as any of you. But I don't want to get sick because I have underlying conditions and I don't want to catch this stupid virus and die from it because I have a couple of movies left in me. But anyway, I want to get back to the point. The EIDL disaster, the PPP program, it's fine if you already had a relationship with SBA. But if you didn't, it will be eternity before you ever see a penny. And what is so distressful about it is most businesses are going to be out of business before their loan application is even looked at. And, Congress enacted these assistance programs to do something quickly. And obviously, our government is so depleted of professionals because, everybody's been fired. The only people that's working is Mr. Trump and his family. And I know that's an exaggeration. I'll hear some complaints about it. But a lot of the professionals that worked in all of these agencies are gone. And there's not anyone there that knows the programs well enough to get it going. But, I worked for many years for a quasi-government service. I worked at the Federal Reserve Bank. It would not be that difficult. When I worked there a jillion years ago, we had the tapes that had all the information on it that you paid the Social Security payments. You had the VA checks. You had all that information was available. It wouldn't take a rocket scientist. And my God, then, it was not as easy as it is now. Just a simple laptop computer has more generating power than the whole 2 or 3 floors of big computers when I worked at the Fed had then. So it's all just taking the database from IRS and sending the checks out. But of course, we learned that Mr. Trump didn't want anything going out before he wrote a letter and letting them know that we're all receiving our $1,200 because of him. Well, I've got news for you, mister. It's not your money. It's the taxpayers' money. And our Congress people, our senators, voted to return some of it to us to help us get through this tragic period of our country. And you don't need to be taking credit for it. You don't need to be thanked. You don't need to have your ego stroked. Governors shouldn't have to call you up and tell you how wonderful you are to get the necessary medical things they need, like ventilators and masks and this and that and the other. You are an egomaniac and you need to resign. Mike Pence, as much as I don't care for him because I had him as a governor, he is a religious fanatic, and I don't do well with religious fanatics of any kind because I certainly don't want to live under the Taliban. But when you hear him speak, he at least sounds intelligent. He doesn't go off on side tangents and scream and holler and complain about Nancy Pelosi and George Soros and blame Obama. Take a break from it. Obama's been out of office for almost 4 years. He's not to blame for any of this. It's under your watch now, and it's your fault. And your base can believe everything they hear on Fox News, and they can go out without masks on, and they can protest and carry their guns. And when they're all dead with coronavirus, it'll be just less voters for you, honey. So I got a word of advice for you. Grow up. And if you don't want to, move out and let somebody else take over. If this is too much for you, which I know it is, and, you know, go back to your clown car, drive back to wherever you came from, and let's get some adults in the room that can solve these problems. Now, I have a lot of Republican friends, and I know that their hackles will be raised for me saying these things, but they will love me anyway. And I'm an independent. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican. I strictly vote for the person. And if a Republican was running that I felt like was better than the Democrat, I would be first in line to vote for him. I was friends with George H.W. Bush. I thought he was the finest man I ever met. Um, he was a joy to be around. He was a gentleman. He was a statesman. And we need people like him. Joe Biden, he's got faults. But he knows what he's doing. You may call it a swamp for having people that's been in office for a while, but at least they know what they're doing. We don't need any more people coming into office that's never done anything with government before. Running a privately held company is not like running the country, because you're used to doing whatever you want to do, and that's not how government works. It takes a village, and you tick off all of the people in the village and you're not going to get nothing done. And one observation I would just like to make, because I thought it was hilarious. Wanda Sykes is one of my favorite comedians, and call me Wanda, I want to work with you. I think you're hilarious. And I don't care what your politics is or was. But she made an observation that every other president, by this time in office, they look 20 years older than when they took office. And every day she gets up and she says, I look 20 years older, and he still looks the same. Trump, he hadn't aged a bit because he hadn't done anything. All he does is lay in bed and watch television and appoint his son-in-law to do, you know, everything from Middle East peace to solving the coronavirus problem. I mean, the boy couldn't even run a real estate business in New York. If it hadn't have been for, you know, his friends in the Middle East, his own real estate business would have gone down the drain. You know, he got loans to bail himself out because of that building on 666. And trust me, you know, all y'all that love this Mr. Trump, y'all can love him all you want to. But he told you who he was. He told you he could go out on Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody, and y'all would still follow him. That doesn't sound like intelligent people. You know, you watched an interview with Billy Bush. You didn't believe that. You heard it with your own ears. You heard him deny at the beginning of this virus situation that it was all fake. It was fake news. It was never coming here. It would all disappear as soon as it got warm. Well, there's, you know, nearly 80,000 people dead in the United States, and there's going to be probably 100,000 more dead by the end of summer, if not more. So you can't believe a word that comes out of his mouth. And for all of us who have known him for years in New York, he's always been a fraud. He's only had a television show that was successful. That's the only successful thing he's ever done in his life. His casinos went bankrupt. His airline went bankrupt. His state company went bankrupt. His school went bankrupt. Everything. If it hadn't have been for his father, nothing he touched would have ever survived. And nothing about him is true. It's all a made-up story. And, you know, his wife is pretty. That doesn't mean anything. His daughter is pretty. But being pretty don't mean you need to be running governmental agencies. You wouldn't want me doing it. But I have more experience than any of those people. So, think about it. And stop thinking of yourself as a Democrat or a Republican or from a blue state or a red state. We are Americans, and our country is going to hell. And all the promises that were made to help people during this time, nothing is getting done. I don't know a single person that's unemployed that's even received an unemployment check yet. It is so backed up. Everything is a mess. None of these programs, they are fabulous programs, but the implementation of them has been a friggin' disaster. And it should have not been that big a problem. Bring people in from other agencies in the government that are not doing as much because the country's shut down. Bring them in and get them to help you process these payments and get them out. You have computer programs that tell you if people qualify or not. I worked in a bank a long time. Nobody makes decisions. The computers do. So get with it. Get people that know how to operate it and get it done. But that's my rant for tonight. I appreciate you listening to me. And if you like my little nighttime bedside chats, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, Amanda Hen. And you can follow me on Instagram and Facebook. And just know that I'm telling the truth. Now, I do need to bring up PPP. It's not going well either. But I do know of one company that has received and has been funded. But it's only people that had previous relationships with the SBA. If you're one of these small companies that didn't have a banker with a large bank that you had previous SBA relationship with, you're going to be waiting till the cows come home. And I'm not sure that Eidl is ever going to fulfill its promise. And good luck trying to get your unemployment. You'll probably be back to work before you ever receive a penny. And most people have not received their just plain stimulus checks. And that should have been the easiest thing in the world to get. Now, my husband and I are not qualified for it, so we won't get that. And I'm glad that we don't qualify for it. But I want people that are, on the fringes of survival to get the money as quickly as possible. And I want to have as many small businesses survive this as possible. And I want government to succeed because, after all, we are Americans. We're not Democrats. We're not Republicans. We are Americans. And if one fails, the other fails. I am rooting for America. And I love you all. I pray for each one of you every night. And God bless you, and God bless the United States. Thank you and good night.